Hello everyone. In today's video we're going to be talking about electromechanical clocks. And in electromechanical clocks there are basically three main groups of types of electromechanical clocks. You have the first group, which is basically the way that the old master clocks from phone systems or from larger companies would work. And I don't have one here, but basically how those work is you have a pendulum, and on those pendulums are a few switches. Those switches give out the pulses to the other clocks throughout the telephone exchange or throughout the company, and also within a telephone exchange those time signals are used for various other things. I will put a link to one in the description. It's really nice to look at, but I don't have one here, so I can't talk about it. The way those clocks work is, so you have your pendulum. There are switches on there, and also those switches switch a coil, a magnetic, like an electromagnetic coil, which basically repels the pendulum back and forth, creating the oscillating motion, keeping the pendulum going. So, but I don't have one of those, but I do have two other types of electromechanical clocks here. So, the other type of clocks, electromechanical clocks, is the type that I have, these two, and that one at the back. And they work by means of, they don't use a switch, they use a detection coil. So what they basically do is they have a smaller coil, and there is a magnet that comes by. If the magnet comes by, then a transistor switches on a bigger coil, which will repel the magnet, creating the oscillating motion. So you can see here on this type you have transistor here, you have some, I think it's a capacitor, and actually two capacitors and a resistor as supporting circuitry. But yeah, so for the rest, very basic movements. We'll take a closer look to them in a bit. This one to that one. In this one it's all in this tiny coil. I won't talk much about this one in this video because that's an ongoing repair. You're going to see a video on that one later. And then there's the third type. And this one. And the third type is basically the oldest type. And it's basically a completely mechanical movement. But it only runs on a really small mainspring that is wound periodically by an electromotor, which you can see on the top. So, let's first take a closer look at these two movements. So we're going to move the camera around a bit, and I'll see you then. So here we have them. This one is a broken one. This one works, which I'm going to show you in a bit. So basically, this here would go a pendulum. You can see here, it's really broken, like, even the suspension spring is broken. But basically what happened here is somebody tried to repair this coil with a soldering iron, which did not work. You can see here, like, part of the circuitry. That's the transistor. Like I said, on this one, two caps, one resistor. The schematic on this is very simple. It's basically just this kind has the pickup coil within the main coil. But yeah, basically just magnet passes by, opens the transistor sends power to the main coil, and it deflects the magnet. And every time, let me see, does it work? Yeah. So every time it passes by, you can see here this grabs onto this gear, which advances the movement one step at a time. And this is just basic reduction to get the hands working. But yeah, this one is broken. So this one works. This one is basically it's just this balance. So this is not a pendulum one. This is with a balance with a hairspring. And as you can see here, you see the adjustment screw to make it go faster or slower. It's basically the same arrangement you can see here. You have one of those two wires, 2 wire wires, is the pickup coil, and the other is the main coil, and there's another main coil at the bottom. You can see here, small PCB. This is the transistor, the capacitor, 2 capacitors, and it has the resistor in this case. And then yeah, battery of course. And then here also you have small gear reduction, and I'm going to show that later on the microscope because there's a little catch back down there which advances the movement every time the mainspring goes by. Mainspring balance goes by. So let's stop this and then put the magnet in, battery in that, and then you can see tiny movement and it's going faster and faster. And yeah, that's basically how those clocks work. They work really good, pretty reliable. So this is a kind of clock that like those were like pre-quartz era. They didn't have a very long life because of the quartz clocks. Quartz clocks were there before the quartz watches. And then the next type I'm going to see is even older than this one. So this is right before the quartz era. And the next one I'm going to let you see is even older than that. So yeah, let's go to the next one, and then at the end I will probably show this one on the microscope. So let's start with this clock from the front, because yeah, it's an interesting clock. It's a world time clock. You can see here the round is a 24-hour dial. You can see like the map is a bit special because yeah, it has a different center point to make this dial work. And then you can see the black parts are nighttime and the white parts are daytime. So we can exactly see in like one glance how late it is in a certain part of the world, which is really interesting. This is also one of my private collection. But I just want to show you this real quick. It's the back that we are interested in, basically. Sadly, I can't open this clock completely because the way this works is that the moment you take this plastic part off, the battery holder comes with it, and there are like those two contacts here. So basically, it's hard for me to make it work without this plastic part. But luckily, because it is transparent, you can pretty much see everything working right now. I will take off the plastic cover later in the video to show you the details of it, but right now we're just waiting until this mainspring here will have depleted enough, and then this electric motor will kick into action. And we had it. So basically, this is just a completely mechanical movement with a really small mainspring, and there's a switch. When the mainspring gets depleted too much, this motor gets power until the mainspring is wound up enough and it breaks the contact and stops the electric motor. There are variants of these clocks which run on mains power, which just run an electric motor continuously and just use kind of like a slip coupling, so that when the mainspring is fully wound, the motor just slips through. It's a very inefficient system, but yeah, this is how they would do it back in the day. So let's take the cover off of this one. Now you've seen it working, and so I can show you the details. So this is the detail of the movement opened. Like, it's still running because there's still a little bit of power left here on the mainspring here. And the way it switches the electric motor on is by this cam here. And you can see here that that's one of the switch contacts here. So the little metal pin. And the way this one works is actually fairly complicated. You can see here the worm wheel that is driving the coil of the mainspring is actually loose, so you can see I can move it back and forth, and that's basically how they detect if there's enough power on the mainspring. So when this gets moved sideways, that means that there is enough power on the mainspring, but when this can do this, because there's a little spring on there, there's not enough power anymore, and it makes the contact until there is enough power so the mainspring can push it back this way, breaking the contact. Really clever system. You can see, yep, here you can see the really fine mainspring here, because it doesn't need much power. But you don't really want it to be much power on there, because that also means that you need a more powerful electric motor to wind it, and you don't need one because you can top it off every few minutes. So yeah, that was the look at this clock. So basically, to summarize, it is mainly a mechanical clock, like a really small movement, which has spring balance, and it's just instead of a human winding it on a certain interval, it's just an electric motor for convenience. Like I said earlier, this kind of clock predates the quartz by a lot. These ones were only very short-lived before the quartz saw the light of day. So now I'm going to show this one under the microscope real quick, and yeah, then we have had it for this video. So here we have it under the microscope. So as you can see, you have our balance, hairspring, and then all the way down here, from time to time you can see it do its thing. So basically, let me stop it real quick. I was going to need. So you can see here, down here, there's that small lip. This lip catches behind this gear, and it will advance it one teeth. If it goes by in the other way, then there's a brake. You can see here that metal flap, you can see that's making sure it can only go one way. And yeah, that just takes it one teeth every time, advancing the movement. And as you can see down here in the gear train, you can slightly see it advancing. So let's slow that down a bit so you can have a better view. So now that it's slowed down, from time to time you can see it click over. Can't always see it, don't really know why. So that was it for this video. I hope you liked it, and I'll hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.